Hey guys and girls, Poketing King here, back with another video. It's been a little while since I've done this kind of video in front of the camera. At the moment we've been doing a lot of streams, a lot of screen shares going through the market, as well as openings. But we're going to revert back to the format that kind of, we really got the channel started going on here for Flesh and Blood content, which is, in front of the display. The display has changed quite a lot since we did a video last. I put a lot of the stuff in storage now, so we've got a little bit of kind of a different variety in the back there. We've still got some boxes left, but not tons. But the theme of today's video is going to be, how was 2023 for, all the big TCGs? We're going to run through multiple TCGs here, mostly ones that I've talked about on the channel, the kind of ones that are relevant here, and to go through kind of how 2023 was for them, and break down some of the things that went right and went wrong for them. So we're going to start off with Flesh and Blood. I think it makes sense to start there. Flesh and Blood had a very mixed 2023. We had a mix with some of the sets. We had sets like Dusk Till Dawn that I think did really well. At the start, the value wasn't great for a lot of it. People were kind of a bit unsure as to where that set sat within, the meta of Flesh and Blood. But the Marvel Angels have done really well since. Even the non-Marvel Angels, even, they're just the general Majestics. Obviously, we had the serialized cards as well. It was the first time we had serialized cards in Flesh and Blood. They were very hyped. I didn't really see very much about them, honestly, after the set came out. I think they were that rare that not that many of them got pulled. And when they did, it was kind of just shared and it sort of just fizzled out a little bit. And I think the star of the show here are those Marvel Angels. There's a lot of good cards in that set as well. Some of the Majestics have good value. So I think that set has kind of appreciated a little bit over time. We had Bright Lights come out as well. A little bit sort of iffy with Bright Lights. I don't think it was an amazing set. I think it just didn't hit what we wanted. Unless you're mech, that it doesn't provide anything. We had another reprint of the Tunic, which is great, I guess. And that kind of, the value of that dropped quite a lot, and then all the Tunics just dropped. We had a massive drop in the Tunic. I think the market is very fickle. We are in a bear market. The economy isn't in the best of times, best of places. So, kind of things like that has a trickling effect. I'm not going to talk about whether or not we needed a Tunic reprint, but all I'm going to say is a lot of the players that were hammering on about a Tunic reprint, when they then pulled their Tunic and tried to sell it, they then complained that the price was too low and no one would buy their Tunic. I picked up Crucible of War Tunics for around 50 quid. I picked up Rainbow Foil WTR ones for around £110. And the Bright Lights Evo ones for around 50 to 60 as well. I even picked up a first edition crew and a white border one. I picked up as many Tunics as I can while the prices have been dropping. They seem to have kind of stabilised a little bit. But what I found interesting was a lot of people wanted the reprint, and when it came and they then had to sell their card because they didn't need it, they couldn't. And they were like, well, why is this card not selling? Well, because we've got enough printings of it that actually, even though we wanted a lower price point on it, we don't, enough players have got the Tunic now. So that's where we are with that. Obviously, we had the reprint of the Teklo Foundry Heart as well this year. That I think is around £25 in the non-foil version. Very cheap. I'm not sure a legendary should be there. I mean, we have the Arcanine Skullcap from Everfest. That's still really cheap. Even the Rainbow Foil version down that is down about £40. So we've kind of seen a retrace a lot on a lot of the earlier stuff from those first couple of sets, as well as Monarch and Toa. Obviously, the amount of heroes that hit LL this year in Blitz and CC kind of changed the game a lot. They're going to be focusing more on the new heroes. We've got heavy hitters coming out this year in about a month, I think, from recording this video, which is great. Heavy hitters actually seems to be a set that a lot of collectors are kind of, they're more excited about than some of the previous sets, which is great. Players as well. It really is going to bring some of those, we've got Kasai, Adult, we've got Kaio as well. We've got another Rhinar. So it's interesting to see what will happen with that set. Whether that will hit the mark for and kind of, be the set that people want. Because Bright Lights was not that. So it's been an interesting year for Flesh and Blood. It's when I look back at a lot of the stuff, I look at a lot of sets that are really cheap still. You can go in the shop and buy Toa Unlimited and Monarch Unlimited still. Everfest has appreciated well. A lot of the Majestics in that set have done really well, which is great to see. So we've got a lot of good sets. I did my tier list for Flesh and Blood, ranking all of those. I definitely recommend checking out. My lowest ranked was Dynasty and Bright Lights. For me, I think Dynasty just isn't an amazing set. I think sets like Uprising is so much better that came out around the same time. There is some really absolutely amazing Flesh and Blood sets. And there's not any sets that are like... When I ranked those Flesh and Blood sets, I would still open Dynasty and Bright Lights over a lot of sets from other card games, like Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! And Magic. There's some... even Flesh and Blood's weakest set, I think, is still better than the weakest sets in other TCGs. Now, we've only had 11, 12 releases right now, so it's still early days here. We hit the 4 years anniversary this year in November. We had Worlds, which was amazing, great attendance. I went to Worlds. If you hadn't seen the content I uploaded, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I met a lot of people in the community, players, collectors, investors, as well as the, James White, the Professor, also some, staff from PCG as well, which was great. So overall, Flesh and Blood has a very turbulent year, but I'm hopeful for 2024. Some people might not be, but I am personally. I think I started playing this year as well, and it took a lot for me to start playing. But I've thoroughly enjoyed playing at my LGS. I've got one win so far. I'm not great, let's be honest. I'm better at making content and collecting than I probably ever will be at playing. But I'm going to play anyway because I do enjoy it, and I think I should play to try kind of help the game keep growing. Because the player base seems to be doing quite well. My LGS specifically, the player base seems to be very healthy there. There's a lot of players, which is great to see. That's what we want. So that's Flesh and Blood. Let me know in the comments below your thoughts for 2023 and what you're excited for 2024. Next, we're going to move on to One Piece. One Piece probably had the best year of any TCG this year, honestly, by a country mile. Whereas everything else was just dropping in value, One Piece was just climbing. Obviously, we had the release of OPO 2 came out in March. Then we had OPO 3, OPO 4, and then OPO 5. So OPO 5 absolutely smashed it. We had the signed Luffy card by Oda. And we also had 3 manga rares, including one of the Luffy card, which, as of recording this video right now, is about $2,500. Which is ridiculous. We also have, as of recording this video, the highest sale recorded for a One Piece card, which was a serialized out of 700 Luffy tournament card, and that sold for 2 Bitcoin or $90,000, which is absolutely amazing. James Chow was the seller of that, a massive collector in not just One Piece, but in other TCGs like Weiss and Grand Archive. He's dabbled in all the TCGs. He's got a fantastic collection. So One Piece, a lot of people have asked me, is One Piece collectible and investable going forward? Now, we're a year into the game, let's be honest here. I can tell you for one, that playability-wise, it's an amazing game, one of the best games I've ever played. It really does play well. The art of the cards are absolutely stunning. They've really done it well with having alts, as well as having, you've got alt leaders and you've got normal leaders, which are, you get a leader in pretty much every pack. But you've got alt SRs and you've got normal SRs. So it keeps the price down when building a deck. Relatively speaking, One Piece is quite a cheap card game to build a deck that's fairly viable compared to a lot of TCGs. Comparing to Flesh and Blood, for instance, where it costs hundreds. One Piece is a lot cheaper, which is great. So I've been running Zorro. I've really enjoyed playing One Piece, honestly. It's been great. Meeting players, going to the Bandai store in London, playing at Comic-Con as well, which was fantastic. The game is growing. There was 1,200 players at regionals in Liverpool at the TCG Expo. Now, there was more people playing in the UK at regionals than any Flesh and Blood event in the UK, which is absolutely mental. Obviously, Bandai, they made the Dragon Ball game. They also made Digimon, and they're also done Union Arena, which is coming out in English. So a lot of people are worried that Bandai have a tendency to make great card games, but they also destroy them with lots of reprints on organisation with tournaments, which they've done before with the past couple of games that I just mentioned. So I would be hesitant with One Piece, but I think One Piece is a big enough IP for those issues that we had with Bandai in the past not to matter. We are on our 5th set. Pre-orders are closed now for OPO 6 and OPO 7. So they will open again for OPO 8 at some point within the near future. There's a load of other products coming out throughout the year. It's an exciting time to be involved in One Piece. You've got a good amount of collectors, investors, and players. And the vast majority is players. And those numbers are shown by every event. I mean, to enter a lot of tournaments now, a lot of organised play, you've got to enter like a lottery system basically to get in to be able to play. As of recording this video now, the Bandai store in London has 2 to 3 sets still in stock. OPO 5 is pretty much sold out globally. You'll find a couple of LGS stores here and there that might have some boxes, but for the most part, until Wave 2 comes out this month, which is going to be a small wave, and then until the next reprint, if they do another printing of it, which I'd imagine they will do, the demand for OPO 5 is comparable with Pokemon sets that I've seen at their peak like the last couple of years. So One Piece has had a massive year. Hopefully the game continues to grow, the players continue to grow, as well as the collectors, because as I've said on the channel before, you do need a good amount of players and collectors for a game to survive. At the end of the day, if the game isn't collectible, then there's going to be very little value in the cards, and people won't open as much product, which is seen in Flesh and Blood in more recent times. But if the game also isn't playable, then no one's going to play, which means that a card game is going to die quicker than if it was just a collectible game, for instance. Which moves me into like Union Arena, which we've announced that it's going to come out in English. Some people that play tested and kind of worked with development early on for the westernized English version of the game did state that the game isn't very playable. It's not great. It's more of a collector's game, which is interesting. If you look at all TCGs, Pokemon kind of has the #1 spot in terms of collectability. Like, there are obviously a lot of players that play Pokemon, but there's more collectors than players. Whereas most TCGs, you kind of need more players than collectors. And the IP really kind of helps that. Union Arena is quite brave to make English when it's probably not going to be played so much and more collected, which suggests to me that at the start, you'll have whales come in the game, they'll pump it, they'll invest it, they'll try and make their quick buck, and then at some point, the game will end up dying, and either people would have sold out or have heavy bags in the game. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with Union Arena. I know Card Cami in the UK, Pokemike, who did the podcast with me, he will be stocking English Union Arena when it comes out, so highly recommend checking that out when it does. I will be interested in kind of looking at if they do the Sword Art Online set in English. Definitely probably will pick up some of that. So let's move to Magic. We obviously had Lord of the Rings set come out. That was massive. We had 2 Lord of the Rings sets come out, technically. That was absolutely massive. We had the chase for the One Ring that ended up being pulled and graded and sold to Post Malone. And that was absolutely massive. We obviously tracked that on the channel. To have cards worth millions that are pulled out of a pack that has come out of a set this year is ridiculous. The cards that we think of being in terms of that high value are cards, like Black Lotus and Pokemon Illustrator, and then sports cards. There's not many TCG cards that hit 1 million, honestly, or even hit 500,000. Very, very few cards in any card game. Sports cards, we know that the values climb into the millions, but for trading cards, it's very rare, and we've never had it with a modern card like that in a modern TCG. So that was interesting. We also had the special edition version. I really enjoyed the Lord of the Rings set, collecting it as a massive fan of Lord of the Rings. I really thoroughly enjoyed that. Collecting it, opening set, draft, and collector packs was really fun. Obviously, the price point of these was quite expensive. It was the most expensive set on release that I've ever opened, honestly. I didn't open a ton of the collectors because paying £350 to £400 a box was quite high. I did end up pulling 2 Soul Rings, the non-serialized ones, one of which I have come back from PSA this week, I believe. So we'll have a PSA returns for that. Magic, on the other side of it, has had a terrible year in terms of its stock price crashed. A lot of faith in the game has died or lost. People from that game have moved on to, Flesh and Blood, One Piece, Sorcery. Magic's not in a great place right now, honestly. We have the Universes, Beyond sets coming out next year. We've got, Fallout, Final Fantasy, Assassin's Creed. And they feel like they're kind of destroying their own IP by borrowing other IPs. Now, people have their opinions on that, whether that's a good or bad thing. I think they're future-proofing their product because they know that most of their collector base or player base are in their 40s and 50s. And what happens when they stop actively playing and collecting? Then, the new generation, they're not going to be, they're not going to be able to relate to, Neon Dynasty, Kamigawa or New Capenna or the Crimson Vow set. Like, they had a lot of sets in a row that were just rubbish, honestly, in their standard releases. And then they've reprinted other cards. The 30th year for Magic just went down in flames. There's a bad taste in people's mouths with Magic. I've seen a lot of the graded market come down as well as the sealed. I recommend checking out Final Trade. He tracks the prices for a lot of stuff, and near enough every sealed Magic box has retraced in value. If you compare it to, say, Pokemon, where if you'd bought the same product, if you bought a product of the same year in like 2020 or 2010 or 2015, Pokemon in every single time would have made you more money. Because, the value of the Magic product right now is diluted. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in 2024 with Magic. Obviously, it is the grandfather of modern card games, so we can't count it out. Hasbro, Wizards of the Coast are massive corporations. They will make sure that they, don't completely lose their IP. But the deals with Amazon and kind of cutting out LGS stores, a lot of people are pissed off, and rightly so. So I'm interested to see what Magic does next year. There's a couple of sets, we've moved on to play boosters. So we're going to get rid of set and draft boosters. We'll have play and we'll have collector. Jumpstart is gone as well. So that is probably a welcomed move. I think just having 2 versions is great. Having 4 was just far too much, honestly. It made no sense. So I wouldn't say I'm excited, but I'm intrigued to see what Magic do this coming year. And that'll be interesting to see. Next, we've got Pokemon. So if you ask a lot of people, they would say Pokemon had a bad year. And in kind of retrospect to previous years, possibly they did. A lot of value retraced on a lot of stuff. We had the post-boom kind of retrace and crash, if you will. Scarlet Violet era came out. And whilst the sets are beautiful, I think the cards are really nice. I really enjoy the sets. I think Paldea Evolved is an amazing, underrated set. We had 151 as well. Box prices are sitting at £80 to £90 a box for any of the standard sets. Even 151, you can still find some 151 out there. Although that set did very well, you still can find it places. The Mew UPC boxes ended up dropping in value straight after release. We had Classic Collection come out. These dropped in value as soon as it came out in English. The Japanese has held up well because it was more limited, as we probably assumed and as we did say on the podcast. But the English has dropped a lot in that value. I know Black Friday, you could get them for around £200, £250, which was ridiculous. Pokemon, we've had that. We've had the Van Gogh Pikachu kind of museum scenario where the people were fighting in the museum and they had to stop selling the promo. Then it went on the Pokemon Center. Then it sold out. People didn't receive it. All that jazz. Like, Pokemon's had a definitely interesting year. We've had a lot of collaborations as well with Pokemon outside of that. And Again, Pokemon, you have to forget, it is the biggest IP in the world. Pokemon is the biggest IP in the world. It collabs constantly with all the companies across the world. Its reach is far exceeds anything else, honestly. So even though boxes are sitting at 80 to £90 a box, I don't think anyone should be worried at all. If anything, I think it's a good time to be picking these up. You can get cases for like 500 quid, even less than 500 quid. In America, you'll probably get them for free, let's be honest, because we know what the market in America is like, especially things like Black Friday. You can get stuff for disgustingly cheap. I recommend keeping an eye on booster boxes and the booster bundles. They seem to do very well. The booster bundles seem to be taken over from ETBs in sets that we do get them. I think ETBs are still a really great product, and it is something that I'd like to see in Flesh and Blood, for instance. A fat pack bundle ETB, like Magic did it, Pokemon do it, and I think all TCGs should do a product similar. It's a really good product where you don't want to have to buy a box, and you do get sleeves. You get a promo card as well in some instances. But Pokemon's had an interesting year. I think the sets have been good. Remember, it's the start of a new generation, so the sets are always the weakest. And then things change, like Paradox Rift, and the next set coming out where we're bringing back the Ancient Traits or something? The Ancient Traits was Paradox Rift. We're bringing back, I can't remember what it was. It was from, someone's going to comment below and correct me, but I completely forgot at this point. I think like the spec things, it's from Black and White, the Plasma series. So they're coming back. That will change the game, I'm sure. The alts are amazing. The illustration rares, you get 4 per box. Very underrated, very undervalued. You can get a lot of them for a couple of quid. I think it's really good. We had a retrace on the Japanese market. You can get any of the most recent Japanese sets now for pretty close to retail. They did the print to order, but even if you're ordering from Japan, I've been picking up Japanese boxes for around £30 each now. They are cheap. I had the Rule of the Black Flame come in. I've got some of the Roaring Flash and Ancient Powers or whatever those sets are come in. I've also had like Clayburst, Snow Hazard. 151 is still holding up quite well. I think last time I checked it was 180. So that has held up well. If anything, that's gone back up again. Just because of how good a set it is. You obviously have the Master Ball cards, which are highly collectible. You obviously have the starter trio. 151 is a very, very strong set in my opinion. And it's a set that will do very well. If you can find deals on boxes, if you can buy boxes for... Remember, distro price is not £80. Distro's prices are above that. You can now buy product for below distro. So in any instance, when you can find a booster box of Pokemon for below distro, that is a good buy, no matter what the set is. Because time and time again, the tail holders time, every single set in Pokemon always goes up. So when we're going to be talking about in 5 years' time, we're going to be talking about Paldea Evolved, and it's not going to be £85 a box. Let's be honest here. You look at a lot of the Sword and Shield sets now, they're starting to climb again. I think Battle Stars is still the cheapest, but Chilling Reign started to go up now. Fusion Strike is starting to go up. All of those latest sets, Brilliant Stars, Astral Radiance, Lost Origins, Silver Tempest is still quite cheap. They had a reprint recently. I think you can still get boxes for about 100. Highly recommend checking that out. The Lugia came back, but it's still a beautiful card. You've still got a lot of those, Alolan Vulpix and stuff cards in that set. Remember, it's Pokemon. That should be enough for people. Because if you're watching this video, let's be honest, you're probably into collecting. And you've probably got a couple of boxes of something stored away. So my advice is buy Pokemon boxes, store them away. Either it's ETBs, booster bundles, or booster boxes. If you can get them cheap enough, I highly recommend holding them. Because I've stopped selling sealed now because there's no money in it. Like, I'm paying distro and then I'm selling it for either at distro price or less. So Paldea and Fates I will get because that set looks amazing and the holiday sets always do well. I've already sold quite a lot pre-order for that set. Link in description below, RatheTavernCards. We still got some bits on there. I think the booster bundles and ETPs and maybe one set of tins are left. But the tins, obviously, we got a shiny Charizard tin. That seems to be doing very well. So Pokemon had a very mixed year, but I think where we are in the time frame and where we are in terms of the market, the economy, I think Pokemon is fine. And I'm going to talk about Yu-Gi-Oh briefly. And whilst I'm probably not the best person to talk about Yu-Gi-Oh, we did have the Rarity Collection come out this year. And that set, honestly, is an absolute banger. Everyone I've talked to in Yu-Gi-Oh, whether they're a collector, a store, or a player, they said that Rarity Collection was amazing. You could get any of the cards in that set in like 7 different rarities. You obviously had 25 years, the quarter century rares. You know, the set's great. I've enjoyed opening the set. We had reprints of the first couple of sets. They don't ever do Magician's Force, so it was like Legend of Blue Eyes, Metal Raiders, Spell Ruler. What did we have? Invasion of Chaos, Dark Crisis maybe, and Pharaoh's Servant, I think. I might be right with those sets. If I'm wrong, I apologise. But either way, reprinting those sets is amazing. Konami can do that because they made the cards, whereas Wizards of the Coast made Pokemon cards early on. So Pokemon can't do that, even though they do with the classic collections, evolutions, celebrations, stuff like that. Reprinting the cards was great. It brought back a lot of people back into Yu-Gi-Oh! And I think Yu-Gi-Oh! Has kind of dropped off a little bit these last couple of years. And I still personally think that Yu-Gi-Oh! Will drop out of top 3. I don't see long-term it being a top 3 game, personally, in the Western world. In Japan, I know Rush Duel did really well. When I was over in Japan early in the year, there was so much Rush Duel out there. There was people buying it constantly. It seemed quite popular. Whereas over here, Yu-Gi-Oh! Doesn't seem as strong, honestly. I think the game seems too complicated for me personally, so I'm not going to get back into playing. I did used to play years ago. I used to play competitively as well. I was actually good at it, which is rare for me because I'm not very good at playing card games usually. I'm good at buying, good at speculating, good at selling, making content, but playing usually I'm very average. But at least I can play. I can lose in style, right? So Rarity Collection and these reprints I think is a really strong move for Konami this year, and I think for that reason Yu-Gi-Oh! Holds its place in 3rd. But I think next year potentially One Piece could take that. I think One Piece has every right to take that, honestly, the way it's going. Let's talk about Lorcana. So Lorcana came out, and then we had the Rise of the Floodborn, the second set, come out. Obviously, we had box prices at the start go absolutely mental. We had these enchanted rares. Elsa was the top card. That went absolutely mental. You couldn't get cards in people's hands. They did say that the print run was small at the start. There was issues with the boxes because you could technically open them from the side because there was no plastic wrapper on them. Since then, we've had a big reprint of the first set, and a second set came out and was due another reprint of the second set. So cards are readily available. Ravensburger's first TCG. They did say that we are going to print this game so that they're game pieces, basically. You'll be able to pick these cards up, and they were honest about it. They were very honest about it, and that's fine. I don't think, bar the enchanted cards, I don't see collectability in those cards in terms of if you're looking to get value. Now, if you're looking to collect them because you like Disney, a lot of the cards look really nice. I think the cards are a bit flimsy for me, honestly, but I think I've been spoilt by One Piece, for instance. So it isn't something that I'm actively looking to collect. I will keep an eye on the game. I think the game has a very good future. Players seem to be quite hyped about it, but I know after the set came out, there was a lot of hype. A lot of people started playing it. A lot of stores were running events, but then they couldn't get product anymore. And I think a lot of stores and a lot of players dropped out. So I'm interested to see what happens going forward with Lorcana. It's definitely on the radar. Again, it's Disney. It's a massive IP. You can't count that out. Weiss Schwartz. I'm probably not going to be the best person. Mike's going to be a lot better to talk about Weiss than I am. So if you want to check his channel out, he will be doing a tier list of all the Weiss Schwartz sets that have come out this year. I recommend checking that out when it comes out. I'm excited to see too. I'm going to talk about a couple of sets that I was interested. So we had the Dengeki Bunku set came out, which is all the light novel stuff. I don't know too much about it, but I know that Sword Art Online was in it. And that was enough for me. So I opened some boxes of that, got some stuff on stream. I really enjoyed it. The art of the cards looked really nice. I like the light novel sets for Sword Art Online anyway. They look beautiful. We had Azure Lane as well come out. That did really well. We had Hololive 2 as well. The big sets. We obviously had... Was it this year that we had the last Attack on Titan set? I'm not sure. And was it this year we had Disney? Honestly, I can't remember. It's been a long year. I probably should have researched that before I doing this video. But Weiss seems to be in an interesting place where it's gone quiet a little bit, which, is fine. I think it's gone back to the levels it probably was, or maybe a little bit more, before the big boom of Weiss happened. A lot of people got involved. A lot of stupid money has been thrown about. We did see that My card absolutely skyrocket in price. I'm sorry, Mike, I know you had one in English and you sold it. But that card is an absolutely stunning card. And that is the Blue Eyes White Dragon, Charizard, Fiendal Spring Tunic, a Black Lotus of Weiss Schwarz. So Weiss Schwarz will be interesting. A lot of people said, would Union Arena take over? I think it's definitely some competition, but not for the player market, but more for the collectors. I think players don't have anything to worry about. Weiss Schwarz is still big. I mean, probably a lot of people went to One Piece as well. One Piece is pretty much the top anime-based TCG right now, let's be honest. It came in and it went, this is mine, and it's taken over. So I'm interested to see what happens going forward. Obviously, I'm going to briefly talk about Sorcery and Metazoo. Sorcery seems to be doing quite well. Beta came out. Supply dried up. I see it in the Discords and some of them, not in the UK anyway. No one cares about it in the UK. But I know in America, it still seems to be quite popular. So the art of the cards look really nice. I'm really enjoyed those. I just don't see, by having one main set a year, the game survives long term. I'm interested to see what they do. I think it's a hard time for a card game to last. Finally, Metazoo. We had the Hello Kitty collab, which went down in flames. Pretty much everything Metazoo is at its bottom. So take that what you will. Is it a good time to buy, or is it just a dead product? We'll find out next year. So thank you all for watching. Please comment, like, subscribe, and have a great day.